It's about that time of day again, folks. Welcome back to Nightly Newsletter, boys and girls. Joseph James here. It's Monday evening, October 24th, 2016. Crude is bullish and trying to make a run back up to last Friday's high. Meanwhile, the S&P is also bullish and struggling to push through last week's high. Gold is bearish and trying to rotate off the low of a channel. And Euro is bearish, but a big overshoot tells them to wait for a correction tomorrow. Boy, we're back for another big week of learning and earning opportunities here in the newsletter. And I have a reliable plan of attack tomorrow. We get some big news on the schedule. Before we jump in and tear this thing apart and put it back together for tomorrow, I want to remind you the only place to watch the full-length version of this video is on our blog at sidewaysmarkets.com. If you're watching the video right now on our YouTube channel, not to worry, there's a link in the description of the YouTube video. Follow that link. Come over here and join me on the blog at Sideways Markets for the full-length version, all four markets, and of course all the analysis. While you're here, don't forget, join the mailing list. I'll send you an email every evening when the nightly newsletter is ready to be watched. Download the charts, follow that link below the video, and make sure those charts are ready on your computer for tomorrow. In the upper right-hand corner, if you're not a member here at School of Trade, I got a free pass for you. Come out and join me as a guest in the trade room. And of course, if you're brand new here to SOT, got a great frequently asked questions page on our blog. That way you can learn the who, what, where, when, and why. We are known as the industry standard in futures trading strategies and professional education. I'm always here standing by to help you guys out. If you have any questions along the way, hope you guys had a great weekend. No rest though for the wicked. No rest for the wicked. Let's keep going here. We're the last week of the month. Of course, we got the old Halloween here happening on Monday next week, but last full week of the month here from the 24th to the 28th. We got the 24th. Nothing major coming out tonight. We got no major news in the overnight session, which means our focus is tomorrow on Tuesday, October the 25th. We got some IFO at 4 o'clock. We got some Case-Shiller, some CP or consumer confidence tomorrow at 10 a.m. Big news of tomorrow is going to be earlier in the day in the London session at 4 a.m. with that IFO survey, kind of a consumer confidence survey, but for businesses coming out of Germany. Everybody watching Europe closely here right now as kind of a leading indication of what's happening in the United States. So we know that'll be on everyone's radar tomorrow. And of course, we got the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. We got the Case-Shiller and the consumer confidence tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. No major news tonight. Tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., 9 a.m., and 10 a.m. If you're trading in London, be aware of that 4 o'clock news. That should be the big market mover of the morning. And then, of course, we'll be opening up our trade room for all of our students tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll see 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock news. Looking forward to it. Also, one more thing here as we go into it. Don't forget, I'm sure you guys know this in Europe, but we get a time change coming here. It'll happen at the end of the week this week, and then it won't be until November 6th. Right, that Saturday, Sunday in the U.S. We'll talk more about that as it gets closer. It is a big deal because when London falls back, that means the London session pretty much comes to an end at 10:30 Eastern Time for about a week and a half. We'll talk more about that here, though, as we get closer and closer to the end of this week and the end of the month. We do have a time change, though, coming. Yeah, it's a good news for all your early birds, but if you like staying up late, though, it'll be, right, we'll lose all that daylight at the end of the day here, at least here in the U.S. It gets pretty dark. Bottom line, we'll talk more about that as we go later on this week. Get a great plan, though, for tomorrow, 4 a.m., 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. And again, I look forward to seeing you guys and gals tomorrow in our trade room. Of course, real time opening up at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Let's go crude, S&P, gold, and we'll wrap it up with the euro. Crude is bullish and trying to make a run back to last Friday's high, but there are some areas of resistance here that tell the buyers they need to hold this next pullback or this price may collapse back down to that round number again tomorrow, which seems to be a pretty sticky magnet here for price. The bulls have control with a strong move off the lows, but if you look closely, you can see the overshoot of the wedge low is now correcting with a symmetrical overshoot of the wedge high. And price happens to be testing the correction zone off of that bear spike and wedge that got this whole day started. The move is quite strong for the bulls. You can't deny that, but they need to hold this next pullback. They want to get the respect from the sellers who we assume will be eagerly waiting for this as an opportunity to sell this back down to 50 again tomorrow morning. We've seen this before, right? We've seen this before. Real strong move down, right? Bears had control all day today into the last few hours of the session, right? big bear wedge, and look what happens. Big, strong overshoot. I think that overshoot really was kind of like an exhaustive move at the end of the session this morning. If you were with me today in the trade room, you saw how every time it went up, it just kept getting sold back down, right? Well, finally, it looks like buyers got their stops run, and this thing just collapsed back lower. Well, measure the move down. You'll notice here it's it's kind of eerie how that works, right? Symmetrical overshoot on the opposite side, and sure enough, that's exactly where it seems to find an area of resistance here right now. Now, at the same time, right, that spike and, you could call this a spike in channel, a spike in wedge. I called it a spike in wedge, right? That gives us now our correction zone. And then, well, I'll be darned, right? Here we are inside that correction zone as well. So really, the most important thing right now is we are now in a position where these buyers may have got their easy target and they may walk away from this. But like I remind you every evening on this newsletter, I've been doing this for years now. It's a bull market. So until it becomes a bear market, we have to treat this as a bull market. What I'm looking for right now is ultimately, do we go up, hold a pullback from there? Or do we pull back, hold a pullback from there? That's kind of the situation right now. If we go higher here, then you want to be thinking, right, mark up that area of resistance. Well, maybe we should call it support at that point, right? But what you really want to be thinking is right now is if this price does go higher, right, be looking for something like this where it jumps up, pulls back, and holds. And that, of course, will be that buying opportunity now going up to retest the high. Once we get to that high, if you recall from last week, they really had some trouble getting through that 51 area. If it does keep going, though, look for that moving average up above. You know what we always say, right? Show me they mean it. Give me a strong enough breakout pullback now that I can be a buyer above that prior high with the moving average above that prior high, right? If price goes higher here, buyers want to hold above that 50-60 area, right? That correction zone high, and then of course up to that prior high. The high of day is, it's there, but I would imagine the prior high up there at 51.02 is really going to be the price magnet for and the target for those buyers. Be careful buying the high though, unless you see some real strength going up through that prior high. What if price goes lower? Well, if price goes lower, this is definitely where those sellers can start to look for this. But beware though, because this is not a bear market. Now, here's something to consider here. Now, obviously, if it pulls back to the moving average, right, big, strong move. I want to see this thing definitely try and hold above that 50.43. We're looking for a strong signal candle on this as it pulls back to the moving average. That's really going to be the key here. It's going to be a strong signal candle closing in and above this 50.43, right? That'll really help us sink our teeth into this as a breakout pullback. It's a real strong move. So if the buyers don't show a lot of conviction off of that moving average, that tells us there is something wrong. Now, that something wrong may be they may just not want to buy into these areas that we've talked about already. So keep an eye out for this tomorrow as well, right? Keep an eye out for this. Price pulls back a little bit further. Let's do this again here, Joe. Let's do this. There we go. Price pulls back a little bit further, not wanting to buy high. We now see sellers have their window now to take this lower, but instead the sellers fail. We see that failure into a breakout pullback. Those will be two additional opportunities here that you'll have if it does pull back, right? If it does pull back. Again, kind of using the top of that wedge as an area of support, right? So buyers, if it goes higher, strong breakout pullback up to the high. If it pulls back, look for that move below the moving average. Sellers will try to reverse it. It's not a bear market though yet. Wait for that reversal to fail. Look for that failure, and then of course into that breakout pullback for move back up. Those would ideally be, right, the more attractive opportunities here for those bulls. Now, one thing you got to worry about here now is if this thing turns into a bear market. If it turns into a bear market, it's most likely going to do so on strength tomorrow. Here are two things you want to be thinking about, right, if this turns into a bear market. First of all, if this thing opens up in the overnight session and we just make a run for it lower, you can pretty much set your watch to the fact that they're going to try to hold that pullback, and if they hold that pullback, that's going to be your cue now, right, that they're hunting for that low of day. Obviously, at this point, the big challenge is we don't want to sell into the low of this, right, the low of this wedge. That's going to be the big problem here. So you want to see it strong, right, a strong move lower, hold that pullback, right, strong move lower, hold that pullback, right, and go. What we don't want to see is a strong enough move to get it all the way down and then have us selling now, right, into this area of support. That's not going to work very well for us here, right? Not going to work very well for us. The key word is strong, but not too strong, because we don't have a lot of room down here, right? We want to get it below that moving average, hold that pullback, and then use the low, $50 a barrel is great, but use the low of that channel as your initial target, and then of course down to that low of day at 49.62 here tomorrow. Now, as we go higher here, right? So now you know the plan for, right, the bears going lower. As we go higher, think about this too, right? Think about this too, because this may be the more realistic thing that happens for tomorrow. Buyers keep this price going higher. They reach their prior high, but they can't quite get through it, right? They can't get quite through it. I can't be a seller here off the high. It's a bull market at this point. Look for a strong move down, hold that pullback, and that will be the one that you're going to be able to sink your teeth into, right, going lower, right? Don't try to be a hero and try to sell off that high, because we always try to think a little bit too far ahead of time sometimes as human beings. When we get up to that high, it's a bull market. Wait for a strong, the key word will be wait for a strong move coming off of that high. That will tell you buyers are taking profit. Sellers will have a shot here, and then when they can hold that pullback, that'll be a shot there, right, for that move back down. Really, the key component here is going to be strength. Whether it's the sellers coming off the high on strength, right? So buyers holding it on the way up, they struggle, strong move, then hold the pullback, right? Whether it's that strength coming off the high and then holding that pullback to the moving average for the move back down, or, right, we want to see that strength going lower here, get back below that moving average, strength, but not too much strength, as I said earlier, because we don't want to be selling into the low, right, of that wedge, as you can see here, right? Buyers have control right now. Buyers have control. If it goes higher, make them prove it, right? If it goes higher, make them prove it. Get that moving average up. Get us some strength and hold that pullback up that high, but be very, very careful. Be very suspicious of buying into that prior high, because we've seen this before, right? We don't want to be buying into that high unless we see that strong breakthrough here, and we'll see how this $50 a barrel plays into tomorrow. Wait to be a seller. Don't just guess right now. Very strong move coming off this low. It's likely going to be at least attempted to be bought up on that next pullback. Now, how about some S&P? S&P's bullish and trading at the last week's high. This is where crude may end up, right, by middle to late morning tomorrow. S&P's bullish, and we are smack right into that last week's high, which appears to be giving the bulls a little bit of trouble this evening. The bulls have control, and after a bear trap below the low of that range, we should be seeing aggressive buying back up to retest the highs, and that's just not quite happening, which means the buyers may give the sellers a chance to take this lower tomorrow. The buyers are already in this move coming off the lows. You can see that big bear trap back below that 43.5. And the next opportunity will be a breakout pullback above those range highs for a measured move target up to 54.75. Sellers, on the other hand, may get the opportunity they need, but they need to see a pullback below that support trend line and then hold that pullback to send this price back down to the low of day tomorrow. This is a really good example of kind of what we should be seeing, but with the exception of this green candle right now, the last candle of the session, we really didn't get kind of what we expect to get, and it has a lot to do with that prior week high. The prior week high you can see sitting right there at 44.5. We call this a spike in range, right? Strong move up, goes into a trading range, big trap low. This trap low is the most important clue on this chart, because when we see a trap low below a trading range, and if it's as bullish as this move looks like it is going higher here, right? Looks pretty bullish to me. If those buyers are still interested, they are going to buy this up like a fire sale going out of business, right? And they're going to buy this up, and it will usually go right up to the high of that range and poke its head right out to that 49. As you can see, though,